$2,456,000.
Item A under 3, can I get a motion?
So moved. Green.
So moved by Councilmember Green, second by Councilmember King. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered.
We have amendment number 4 to the service agreement between the city and AT&T for telecom services, extending the term through July 2025 and increasing the maximum compensation.
So moved. Green.
So moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember King. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Next item.
Amendment number 3 to the professional services agreement between the city and Global Solutions Group for cybersecurity, technology, enterprise services, and products. This is going to extend the term through September of 2025 and increase the maximum compensation.
So moved. Green.
Moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember King. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Next
We
item.
have active leasehold mortgage, pledge of leases and rents, and security agreement between the city and Grove Place 2 for $2 million in general obligation bond financing for development of affordable housing units.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councilmember Green, second by Councilmember King.
My apologies, Councilmember, there was at least one comment on this
Okay.
that I'm,
Okay, let's get to the comment.
give me a second. Neglectful in pulling these up before.
Mr. Chair, while we're awaiting those
Councilmember Green.
online comment, I'd just like to comment, I should wait until we vote. But assuming that this passes, it shows the continual commitment of the administration and the city council working in concert to develop more affordable housing units in the city. It's an ongoing challenge, but it's a challenge that the city council and the voters, through their support of the Housing Trust Fund, have shown that we want to take on. So I'm pleased to be involved with this process that's going to make, again, through a developer who has already proven his ability through the development of Grove Place 1 to get done affordable housing in our city. So again, I move for approval.
Thank you for those comments, Councilmember Green. Councilmember Green moves. Councilmember King seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Online comments?
Yep, sorry, I'm having trouble connecting.
Okay. You know, one of the things moving forward is I think we should probably have some run before committee meetings so we know that technology works, so that the individual screens work, so that the internet works, and so that we get here, we can go to work. So I don't know who's in
Yep,
charge of that.
that was my bad. I failed to pull it up beforehand.
Who is? Okay, all right. Ms. Curran,
Can't find it.
can't find it?
No, I
Mr. Chair, I'm very open to the public comment that might be made, but I might suggest that we move to the next item. And if I hear that public comment and it affects my desire to move forward with the motion, I'll certainly make an adjustment.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. Is that the last contractual item, first of all?
You now have your grant agreement between the U.S. Department of Transportation and the city for the Connecting New Orleans East for Pedestrian.
And I think they're here to do a presentation. If you guys could come forward, announce yourselves, and start your presentation, please.
Good afternoon, Council. Greg Nichols, Director of the Office of Resilience and Sustainability. With me, I have Jennifer Ruley from the Department of Public Works and Dan Jatras, also from ORS. So we're here to present today on the $61 million award that the city had from the Reconnecting Communities program. Our office authored the grant and submitted it in partnership with the Department of Public Works. This was awarded in March of 2024, and it's a really historic investment into the New Orleans East community. The Reconnecting Communities program was designed to bridge divisions that were created by transportation infrastructure and reconnect, as the name of the program denotes. One thing I will note here is that no local match is required for this grant award, so it's a $61 million investment into the New Orleans East community. The purpose of the grant, which Dan and Jennifer is going to get into in just a second, is to improve the safety and connectivity along the I-10 East corridor. It will address the lack of lighting, the lack of sidewalks along the I-10 service roads, and provide safe crossings along the interstate. This grant application was supported and based off a 2023 study done at the city's request by the Regional Planning Commission, and Dan and Jennifer will touch on that a little bit more. I will just say that, the purpose of one of the reasons that our office is interested in this grant is that we have climate action goals around shifting folks out of their automobiles into other modes of transit, walking, biking, and transit. And this project is a transformative way to invest in those multimodal forms of transport. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, council members. I just wanted, starting off my comments about the issues that were known and identified through that feasibility study that served as the basis of what we were hoping to, and what we are hoping to improve and rectify through the grant proposal, and then moving forward into the public process and design process with this grant. So the Interstate I-10 through New Orleans East was constructed in the 1960s into the 1970s before a lot of the adjacent development was there. So a lot of the subsequent development of residential subdivisions came after the interstate, and a lot of that development didn't include a lot of infrastructure beyond the roadways themselves, oftentimes lacking sidewalks. The service road in particular along the interstate lacked sidewalks, lacked roadway lighting, and there was a lot of disconnected transportation infrastructure, particularly for people walking in that community, whether it's along the corridor or trying to cross I-10, which at that point was a significant barrier to movement between the northern and southern sides of the interstate. So while New Orleans East is a part of the city that largely developed in the automobile era, there are still many residents that live in New Orleans East that don't have access to a car. 13% of households in New Orleans East don't have access to motor vehicles, so they are utilizing and dependent on other forms of transportation, transit, walking, bicycling. So this project and the components of it are really seeking to address the fewer transportation options that exist in the community, and particularly for residents that don't have that transportation access from a car. Currently, the transit service in that corridor is less frequent and less dense than in many other parts of the city. There is not transit service along all portions of the service road currently because of, like I mentioned before, the lack of lighting, the lack of sidewalks. Really makes it hard for RTA to provide transit service even when there are residents and destinations along the service road that would benefit greatly from the provision of transit. And that's because there are many community destinations, businesses, churches, schools that are along the service road or in the immediate adjacent areas that residents of the community need to and are accessing, and this project seeks to provide more transportation options to access those destinations. You can see from these pictures, the current demand is there. You know, the bottom picture in particular demonstrates the worn path in the grass from people that are walking right now and are walking in conditions that are certainly suboptimal and not always the safest conditions because there is not specific infrastructure designed to support that. And then from the health side of things, New Orleans East, amongst neighborhoods in the city, has a higher rate of diabetes, asthma, and obesity, higher than the city average, higher than the state average. And part of that is likely attributable to the built infrastructure not providing people with as many opportunities for physical activity. Moving then to the safety aspects, this map here depicts crashes that occurred along the corridor in the 5-year period between 2017 and 2022. About 67% of the bike and pedestrian crashes that occurred along this corridor took place in providing people with as many opportunities for physical activity. Moving then to the safety aspects, this map here depicts crashes that occurred along the corridor in the 5-year period between 2017 and 2022. About 67% of the bike and pedestrian crashes that occurred along this corridor took place at night. That helped guide towards the component of adding lighting to this corridor would be a critical feature of the proposal. We've even unfortunately had people killed trying to cross the interstate on foot because of the long distances that exist right now between the opportunities for people to move between the north and south side of the interstate. Subsequent to the study and the crash data that was analyzed as part of the study, we've had additional fatalities along the corridor, including 2 people walking and 1 person bicycling. And then continuing on with the safety issues that we're hoping to address and mitigate through this project, on this page, or on this screen, you'll see on the left side are counts of people that are currently using the corridor. So again, going back to that image we showed before of the worn path in the grass, there are people that are out there today walking and biking along the service road and in all segments of the 5-mile corridor between Dwyer Road and the Vincent Canal. And then the image on the right demonstrates or depicts the motor vehicle speeds, the average motor vehicle speeds that are occurring right now. So you can see throughout the corridor, speeds are in excess of the posted speed limit of 35 miles an hour, and in some cases far in excess of that posted speed with 45, 50, even as high as 58 miles an hour for the average speed. So this kind of sets the context of the issues that were identified through the feasibility study, quantified through data collection, through public engagement at the meetings, which we'll discuss a bit later, and helped guide the concepts that came out of the feasibility study that led into the funding proposal. And I will turn it over now to my colleague Jennifer to continue the discussion.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. So we took the findings of the feasibility study and the recommendations from the feasibility study in 2023 and the costs that were estimated for the recommendations, and we tried to find a way to implement. And at that time, the Reconnecting Communities federal grant program was being advertised. So we applied for the full scope of the recommended improvements from the study. So the entire project footprint is from Dwyer Road on the west side to Vincent Canal on the east side. That's 5.5 miles. It's a significant footprint. 11 miles of paved trails for walking and bicycling. There's very few sidewalks, as you saw in those photos, along that service road. We would also add in pedestrian safety upgrades at the intersections with signals and crosswalks, and then we would also improve lighting along the service roads, which for the most part doesn't exist. There's very little lighting along the service roads. We would also be adding in 3 pedestrian bridges across the I-10 where surface crossings do not exist, so there's no at-grade crossings. Some of the benefits that we see coming out of these types of investments into this corridor are that we would be dramatically improving the connectivity for the community around the corridor. The interstate system, as Dan mentioned, serves as a barrier for a lot of people, especially people who don't have access to a car. So it makes it even harder to get to those surface crossings of the existing intersections that do allow for access across the interstate. So currently we have 4 surface crossings of the interstate. And due to the distance between those crossings, these are longer, inconvenient for people walking and bicycling, and so there's a higher risk of crashes, as we see in the data. We are proposing a total of 7 crossings, which would also include connecting sidewalks, which would facilitate shorter, convenient walking distances and a lower risk of crashes. Note that where we are proposing new crossings, these are areas where we as a city control the public right-of-way. We already own the public right-of-way. So that makes sense to take advantage of our public right-of-way to make that connection possible. So the components of this design, when implemented, have proven safety records. So sidewalks and paved trails can reduce the crash potential up to 68%. High visibility crosswalks have a significant reduction with 40% reduction in crash potential. Lighting has a 42% crash reduction potential, and then pedestrian bridges over interstates also have a significant crash reduction potential beyond their connectivity benefits. And then there are additional project benefits beyond the safety benefits that I just mentioned, such as improving the neighborhood aesthetics through landscaping, lighting, and distinctive design. We're also creating new opportunities for health and fitness. As Dan mentioned, health disparities are not optimal in many neighborhoods throughout New Orleans East, so providing new opportunities for health and fitness. We're also better connecting residents of all ages and abilities to destinations such as schools, parks, commercial areas, and institutional buildings. And we're increasing the overall traffic safety for the 64,000 people who live near the I-10 service road or along the service road, which includes a lot of subdivisions whose only access to and from the subdivision is directly to the service road. They have no other alternative entrance points. And then we're also linking this corridor to other existing and future trails and green spaces in New Orleans East. So we began, it was really important to the city to have a community engagement process when we were undertaking the feasibility study. And we requested from the Regional Planning Commission that we include a formula for including community stakeholders in the project management committee that is part of that process that the Regional Planning Commission uses, and also that we have public meetings. So this slide is showing that we had numerous meetings involving stakeholders throughout the feasibility study. So the community was involved in informing the scope of this project and collaborating with the Regional Planning Commission to come up with solutions. So we had public meetings. That you can see some of these photos of meetings that we had in New Orleans East at the public library. We also had an online survey to make it a little bit easier for people to engage in the process if they couldn't attend the public meetings. We also had a meeting with Council District D and E during this process to brief them on this project. And then as far as moving past the feasibility study into implementation, the funding will allow us to do further engagement with the community, including participating in a nationwide Reconnecting Communities Institute, which is a gathering of other cities who have received Reconnecting Communities grants. And so it's technical assistance, and we're inviting some members of New Orleans, the public, to participate with us as advisors on the project. There will also be multiple design phase meetings, and then there will be a pre-construction meeting. So throughout the process, there will be this will be a community-driven process. So the next steps for this grant is that there is a motion before you to accept this federal grant award. The grant period is for a performance time of 5 years, and that is very, very specifically managed by Federal Highways. So we have to get through a design and construction within 5 years. There is the design and community engagement and bidding process will occur over 18 months. And so that will conclude in September 2026, and that is an obligation under the grant agreement. That is a requirement. We cannot extend that. So this design effort will include a request for proposal, as well as consultant contracts that are subject to City Council approval. So we'll be coming back to you for approval once a consultant is selected. And then anticipated construction would be fall 2026 through fall of 2029. So with that, I think that's it, and we will take your questions now.
Thank you for your presentation. There were a couple of things I was taking notes. Connectivity. Connectivity to what? In many cases, with these proposed connectivity recommendations, what are we trying to connect people to?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, there are numerous schools, there are numerous commercial areas, there are parks, playgrounds, there are, other types of roadways that are getting trail improvements, such as Morrison, there's Dwyer Trail, there's Joe Brown Park. I've got a map of destinations within walking distance to the project, if you would prefer to see it on a map. Yeah. But this is like a map of many, many destinations within walking distance of these connection points.
And I asked that question because in taking a look at evaluating other cities who do it, usually it's a community that doesn't have an asset or a need or a want, and that connectivity, that roadway, that thoroughfare, that sidewalk, that overhead crossroad walk like you guys are proposing here, usually brings them to something. But in a couple of the areas that I saw, there's no store, there's no school, there's no hospital. So in those cases, what are we connecting if there's no need or want that the proposed overhead walkway, what are we connecting them to?
So the frequency of the connections is also a driver as to like how much risk that pedestrian needs to take in getting from one side to the other. What we heard during the feasibility study when we talked to people in the neighborhood, we heard, I live on one side of the interstate. My cousin lives on the other side of the interstate. We have to get in a car to meet up with each other, to travel, to even meet up with our family. So it would be nice to have a better connection where I don't have to always have a car to get around, even to meet with family. So connecting between residences is also part of that connection and community, not always needing to get to a particular destination like a store. The other thing is that we've mapped out all the transit stops on this map, so you can see where people are having to walk to get to transit, and we know that transit is limited in the east, so walking is more of a requirement.
Yeah, and I asked that question, but it's a bedroom community. also. I think it was designed as such, a little different from the CBD. And as I've taken a look at it, the major issues are sidewalk access, right? Public transportation access. And so what was the driving force for the overhead walkways that in a couple of communities where we have some opposition, where other than bringing someone from their house to their cousin's house, you wouldn't have that much traffic or doesn't feel that much of a need.
So I've mapped out all these destinations, and when I looked at this map, I was really surprised of how many destinations are within walking distance of the locations where the new connections would go. So I don't know, like, at what point you would have to meet a threshold, like you don't have enough destinations or not. But the idea was to create more frequency in those crossings and to ensure that people don't have to walk way out of their way in order to safely connect to the other side.
And that's just another point, especially when you're talking about walking, there's some science involved there, right? Especially in an age where most of our health experts are telling us we need to walk more. We need to drive less. So what is too much walking, and what's the science associated with, instead of walking these 4 blocks, then you can take an overhead walkway 2 blocks? Or is there some science involved?
Well, so like anywhere between a quarter of a mile and a half a mile is
too much?
what people would walk. Anything more than that, people are just going to take the shortest direction they can, which sometimes means crossing the interstate, unfortunately.
And then on the overhead walkways, if I remember specifically, a lot of the traffic fatalities have happened on South Claiborne, between the interstate and Napoleon Avenue. I think specifically a couple of years ago, there may have been 2 or 3 that were back to back. Why aren't we proposing an overhead walkway there?
Yeah. So the research, as Jennifer was just mentioning, shows that when there are other options, people tend to take the shortest option. So oftentimes, and I think Las Vegas is a poster child example of this, they built pedestrian bridges over major roads to try to get people to cross. They then had to put up fencing and walls to actually get people to use those bridges because it was a longer distance and out-of-the-way travel. People didn't want to do that extra distance. They just wanted to cross on foot. Claiborne does have its challenges, and the higher volumes of traffic and the higher speeds do make it difficult in places to cross, and we have had fatalities. Putting bridges may not be the solution there because of that problem of you build the bridge, but people are still going to want to use the shortest distance, which is just crossing on foot.
Yeah, the Xavier University example is a good one. They built that overhead walkway, but if you would post up there for a few hours and kind of watch, most of the students do what? They don't use it.
I imagine they are using it because they have to get across the canal still, and so the bridge does provide the shortest distance over the canal.
Just in case they want to use it. Okay. And then the other thing is that community meetings, the community meetings can serve 2 different functions. There can be meetings about what you want to do, and so people will come out, they won't have any opposition, they won't be to or for or against, but then there's meetings necessary about what you're gonna do. So we've had meetings about what folk maybe want to do, but not about what's proposed and what you're gonna do, correct?
The public meetings that were held as part of the feasibility study were held to allow the community to provide input on, are these the problems that you're seeing, that the data is also demonstrating, and what solutions does the community see as workable to trying to address or at least reduce those problems? Yeah.
And all those options are shown based on different input on the cousin wanting to get to the auntie's house and where the park is and where there isn't a sidewalk, right? Mm-hmm. So now we have a chance to talk about what based on all that information, what you're proposing you're gonna do if it's approved.
Yeah, the public engagement that will be part of the design and moving into implementation will be getting into the specifics, taking the concepts that came out of the feasibility study and informed the grant proposal, taking that from conceptual stage into what would actually be constructed as part of the construction timeline starting, in late 2026.
So now we can have that next level meetings about what are you actually proposing to do with the 61 million?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
just to clarify that the grant, the selection of our project in this grant program, it was a competitive process. We competed with communities throughout the nation, and the Federal Highways Administration liked the components that we had proposed as a connectivity project.
Right.
And so they've agreed to fund all of our components. If for any reason those components change significantly, they will have to be the entity making the decision. We don't make that decision.
Gotcha. And look, thank you guys for the studies, but there were different levels of what we, first of all, accessing the grant and the funds, talking about concepts and getting input, and now some of those concepts and some of those recommendations are part of a potential reality. So then the next level has to be to deal with that. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you. I have two really brief questions. The first one, when speaking to community members, the first question I get is maintenance. Because obviously, when you look across the nation at similar projects, they're very pretty and well used when they're built, but without the city contemplating the ongoing maintenance, they get graffiti, they get rusted, the lights go out, and suddenly they turn from something that could be used for convenience to someplace where you could have some inconvenient things happen to you. So as we're looking at this project, as we're planning it, it really would be helpful for you to let us know what the ongoing maintenance costs might be so that we can budget for those. Because obviously, if we're going to do this, it's not just the installing it, it's the upkeep, and that's going to be a dollar number. The other concern that I've heard, particularly from the elderly, is, as you know, there has been an ongoing effort with RTA to try and have different routes going through New Orleans East. A complaint that we've heard repeatedly is the shifting of RTA high-speed routes to the south side of New Orleans East. So you've got people with tremendous mobility issues that previously would find similar fast transit from Haynes having to go to Chef Mentor. And the concern I've heard from those individuals is, as we kind of put these bridges over there, it does provide more opportunities to go from the north to the south, but if you have mobility issues, as in you do not want, it's not an issue of you need more ways to walk to Chef Mentor, it's I can't get to Chef Mentor, that this is not going to create a mechanism where that shift accelerates and there's even less RTA access on the northern side. So if you could, I don't think those are questions you'll be able to answer today, but those are questions that my office was given, so if you could get some answers on those, it would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Marino.
Thank you. Just a brief question. Can this plan be altered at all?
So, like Jennifer was mentioning, the funding proposal is what was selected for award by the Department of Transportation. As we go through the public engagement process, the specifics of taking that concept to design is still to be worked out and be determined, and that's fine. If there's a significant change to the scope, it would be something that the U.S. Department of Transportation would have to approve.
Like, for example, if there's a specific pedestrian bridge where there's significant opposition from a neighborhood, and maybe the neighbors there believe that it's not necessary or don't want it there, would that be a significant change?
Yeah, I would classify that as a change that would require consultation with the Department of Transportation.
But it doesn't mean that there can't be alterations.
It would be their decision whether, approve an alteration or just a removal, and what that impact would be on the budget that's awarded.
Yeah, Federal Highways has told us that if you remove a component of the grant, funding gets removed as a result. So
I'm
that's
just wondering
something to consider.
if it's something where neighbors are highly opposed to it, on whether or not we could find a better use for those monies. Instead, that neighbors would be thinking that it's going to be useful for them. That's the case that I'm making.
Right.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, if you, ultimately, they're going to decide based on the recommendations that we put forward, and then the next level of meetings and communication with residents. But for me, if a bridge isn't at, or a crosswalk isn't at point A, then what stops it from being moved to B, C, D? So there's a lot of different variations we can present. It doesn't mean that we're eliminating a particular aspect of this, but if we give them something, especially that the community supports, then ultimately I would hope that's what our federal partners would want, correct?
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that the locations that we've proposed for new bridge connections are locations where we have city streets that dead end at the interstate, so we control that right away. If we go to a location that we don't have city assets, that means we have to procure right away, and it becomes a complicated process.
That's a negotiation, correct?
It's part of the process.
Part of planning, part of working out with the community, right? Councilmember Green?
I'm going to wait until the comments.
We have some public comment cards. Do we have any online comments?
Yes.
Let's go to the comment cards first, please. Courtney Wong? Is Miss Courtney here?
Hi all, my name is Courtney Stuckwish-Wong. I'm the Deputy Director of Economic Development for the city. Excuse me. I'm speaking in support of this grant proposal. I think that this Reconnecting Communities grant is a tremendous opportunity to provide recreation and connectivity to several New Orleans East neighborhoods. As we have seen in other areas of the city, where the city has made an investment like the Lafitte Greenway, streetcar lines, other private investment tends to follow. So this could be a great opportunity to attract retail and commercial development to the area. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Naomi Jones.
Naomi Jones, 206 Momus, speaking for myself, not getting paid. Also, I made an electronic comment for the Monday agenda. I don't know if they're rolling over to this, but if they are, you can scratch mine.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Aline Laspina? Laspina? You'll connect me. You'll make me correct her.
It's okay. Aline Laspina. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to talk. I'm Aline, the Executive Director at Bike Easy. We represent a lot of the members in the bike community in New Orleans. I wanted to talk about my experience with this particular project, starting with the death of Larry Monroe on June 5th of 2022. He was killed on Mayo Road and the I-10 service corridor in New Orleans East. I went to help set up his ghost bike and met his sister-in-law, who actually happened to live in Algiers, and was asking us, how come we have this amazing infrastructure on our area, not here? Larry Monroe was only 46. He was a son, he was a brother, and he was a father, and he used to ride his bike everywhere. And he actually used to commute from New Orleans East all the way to Algiers to visit his family. That death really touched me. It was the beginning of me being an executive director, and always stayed with me, especially when he said, how come they have this great infrastructure? And they didn't know at the time we were fighting to not have the bike lanes removed. The following year, we had the feasibility study, and the following year, we secured funding. This is so uncommon to have that quick of a turnaround, and it's so amazing that we're going to get this investment. I definitely support, the organization supports this. We were part of the project management committee when they were doing the feasibility study. We were at these meetings. I encourage all council members to attend these kind of meetings. And Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the destinations that are listed for things that can connect were the determine at these meetings with our community and the locals who live in these communities, with a map, with Post-its, what are the things that we didn't even know. Is not something that you just Google map, these are the different businesses. It's like actually had community input. So really excited to hear there's going to be more community input going forward. And to JP Morrell's point, maintenance and factoring in that this is a service road, state DOTD working together. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Fisher Schaefer.
Hi, my name is Fisher Schaefer. I'm with Faubourgs Forward, a community advocacy group, unpaid, and want to express our support for this grant to provide more infrastructure for New Orleans East. Thank you.
Thank you. Clark Thompson.
Thank you. I'm Clark Thompson, 3201 DeSoto Street, lifelong New Orleans resident, born and raised in the 13th Ward, live in the 6th Ward now. I'm here representing New Orleans Ghost Bikes. I'm not paid for this. New Orleans Ghost Bikes recognizes the deaths of those killed on our roadway by automobiles while riding their bikes. As Aline spoke earlier, we attended to the memorial for Larry Monroe out here. We've attended to other memorials out in this neighborhood, people that were displaced from safely getting lengthways, not only across the interstate, but lengthways along the interstate because the service road is so dangerous. And so they go over to Morrison Road, and so we've had a number of people, and you'll see a number of ghost bikes also on Morrison Road where people were killed there. I'd like to recognize, Mr. Thomas, your suggestion that we don't know what the destinations of these people were. They're dead, but the people, there is clearly a need to get across the interstate. There are people that are going and crossing the chain link fence, running across 3 lanes of traffic at 90 miles an hour, then another 3 lanes of traffic. They're doing it. We can't know why it is they're doing it, but they're doing it. And I'd also like to bring to all of your attention that this is not only an issue for your community in New Orleans East. This is an issue for everyone that uses that interstate or the service roads, that they don't want to hit and kill another human being. And when they have people running across the interstate, there's no chance of them avoiding those people if the timing's wrong. They're going to hit them and they're going to kill a person. And I don't want anyone to have to suffer that. Finally, I'd like to again recognize your concern about Claiborne Avenue intersection. Claiborne.
I'm sorry, your 2 minutes are up. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Claiborne Avenue, it's a huge problem. Thank you for recognizing the piece.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Online comments.
Of course, just to backtrack, our comment for the previous contract is from Laura Bard. She says, in a city that runs on the hospitality industry, providing affordable housing for service workers is essential. But the city is known for corruption in building contracts, so transparent oversight and a timeline that is enforced is necessary. The affordable housing needs to be centrally located and safe, locked central entry, security cameras, etc. So people working in minimum wage can have a decent place to live without having to commute up to an hour each way. And make it easy for people to know when and how they can apply for the apartments. The application process and income qualifications need to be clear and easy to understand, especially for someone who does not speak English as a first language. On this item, we have Ramsey Marcello commenting, I fully support the advancement and implementation of this grant. Any improvements in bike safety and mobility for folks all around town is a bonus. Charles Daniel, representing Go Ride, says, what percentage of the bike pedestrian plan construction will be allocated to DBEs? Carolyn Leftwich says, I'm a 73-year-old cyclist and avid walker who stays fit in part by biking and cycling to meet much of my daily needs in and about uptown New Orleans via bike lanes. I'm so excited to see that New Orleans East will be getting walking and biking in an area which needs this so much. Brianna McDonald comments, I fully support adding more walking and biking paths in New Orleans East. So many unnecessary injuries and deaths to pedestrians and cyclists could be avoided if we approved a project like this. Diane Nudry says safe bicycle and pedestrian pathway are very important to any city. New Orleans needs to make pathways that are strictly for bicycles and pedestrians to make this happen and allow access that doesn't require a vehicle. David Fertitta says, we need better infrastructure for walking and biking safely to create healthier communities. This could be a part of a Vision Zero strategy to eliminate tragic fatalities and severe injuries that other cities have adopted. Mary Phillips comments, I'm really excited to see more funds and energy spent on creating access and safety for pedestrians and cyclists, especially in places such as the East that are often neglected. There are many benefits to creating a pedestrian and cyclist-friendly environment, including local economy and health. Tanya Wolf says we need an investment in road improvements that will eliminate fatalities of bikers and pedestrians. Angela Kyle with the Complete Streets Coalition says, as a member of Complete Streets, I wish to voice my support for the approval and execution of the grant agreement between the USDOT and the city to fund the Connecting New Orleans East Pedestrian and Bike Safety and Mobility Project. An investment of this scale in the East will dramatically increase safe, active mobility options and improve connectivity for residents of this community. And finally, Bob Payne comments, it is great to see the city receive federal dollars to support transportation equity, and I applaud the efforts of the city and council to provide a network of walking and biking paths to improve connections and safety in the New Orleans East service corridors. This will help increase public and physical health in a neighborhood where it's needed. That's it for your online comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just take this opportunity prior to our vote. I'm not going to make an assumption as to where the vote goes because that has to be taken. But I want to thank
the vote is just to receive the funds.
Yes, just receive it. Just want to make sure, but I'm sure that we will. But at this time, it gives me an opportunity to say in advance thank you to the Department of Public Works and the Department of Office of Sustainability and Resilience for putting in this application that is thus far successful. I think that one thing is certain, we'll all be able to leave this meeting saying, the major projects that are proposed here, the bike paths, the walking paths that we don't have right now along the service road are very good. So I thank you for that vision. I do think that sometimes it's helpful to be redundant. I know that, for example, the city hasn't done everything that needs to be done relative to the crosswalk, for example, to the park along the river. If we're going to create these crossings, as was mentioned, maintenance is so important because if the concept is that people get used to doing it a certain way and then those walkways aren't maintained, then you could indirectly be encouraging people to run across the interstate. As you have these meetings, it's important to talk about the long-term sustainability and reliability if they come to pass. I'll also just say this without having notes for it. It's a little curious that we want to do the walkways because they discourage people from walking along the paths that we created. And it's just something to think about. I mean, is it worth the creation of the crosswalks at those locations that stops people from going down to the corner of Crowder, Reed, and Bullard, where there are traffic signals, for example, and of course there's an ability to walk to get there, which enhances health too. It's just food for thought, but with the approval of accepting these grant funds, of course, this begins a process that involves even more participation by the public, and I encourage the public to participate.
I want to thank my colleagues for the questions. I want to thank you guys for the work that you did. It's important, especially when you talk about connecting communities. But there's a bigger message here. We need to make sure that every square mile, every neighborhood, every block is connected to every asset and every service in this city. We talk about connecting New Orleans East. with the history for the last several decades, is a community that feels like it's been disconnected from the greater city, but now we want to connect it to itself. Well, we need to make sure that it's connected to its city, and its ad valorem taxes, its sales taxes, its services, all of the things that this city has to offer. And it was mentioned earlier about chronic illnesses. As someone who's proficient in that, but many of the chronic illnesses exist in New Orleans East because it's an 82.3% African American community. And if you look at African American communities around the country, what are some of the challenges, especially with many that have the economic and social challenges, that you have chronic illnesses? So then the question is, what about the service providers in the medical industry and those who have expertise? Though we recognize those chronic illnesses, those chronic illnesses don't go away with a sidewalk, a bike path. Those chronic illnesses go away when you have resources and investments that value that African American community, and that never should have disconnected it from the at-large community for whatever the reasons. So hopefully moving forward, while we're talking about connecting the roadway and connecting the walk path and connecting the bridge, we won't forget to connect the people. With that, I'll move adoption of the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Green. All in favor? Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you.
I'll bring these maps to you.
Please, thank you. And thank y'all for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Before we get to item 4, which is I'm sure most of the people are here, I want to read a statement, hopefully on behalf of myself, but hopefully on behalf of everyone here. In light of the recent terrorist attack on New Year's Day, our community stands together with unwavering resolve. We grieve for those affected and honor the bravery of our first responders who acted with courage and professionalism. This tragedy has reminded us of the importance of unity, vigilance, especially during challenging times. As we approach the Super Bowl, Mardi Gras parades, Lundi Gras, Mardi Gras Day, and various New Orleans festivals and second lines and activities, just to name a few, I, along with my colleagues, are committed to ensuring safety and security of all attendees, staff, and residents. We need to make sure enhanced security measures, including the strategic placement of bollards, anchors, archers, are part of our proactive approach to protect public spaces without compromising the spirit of the events. These steps are taken not out of fear, but out of responsibility and care for our community. We will continue to work closely with local, state, and federal partners to strengthen security while keeping our community involved and informed. Moving forward, our focus remains on collaboration, transparency, and honoring the strength of the people who live here. Together, we will rise above whatever fear we think we have, support one another, and ensure that events like Super Bowl and other events bring us together in celebration and not division. Thank you for your strength, your patience, and your unity as we move forward. Please note that during these discussions, we seek to understand and prevent such incidents in the future. We want to always strive to make our city safer and stronger. And of course, several questions will accompany that as they come to mind, but I would like to also discuss those along with my colleagues. And such, this dialogue is not an investigation, though there are pending investigations and people calling for investigations. This is not this committee's intent. And keeping that in mind, please make sure that we're respectful as we present questions and talk about how we're safer moving forward as a community and how we have a constructive conversation to better prepare us for every event moving forward. Madam Clerk, call of the agenda item, please.
This is a discussion to address the security measures, including all barriers available to limit roadway and sidewalk access in the wake of the recent terrorist attacks. We have representatives from the DPW and OPD.
Chief and Director Hathaway, if you guys are prepared opening statements, you can make your opening statements, and then we'll get into the discussion around this issue. And I have the cards from people who filled out for this item, and once the presentation is over, my colleagues finish answering questions and making statements, we'll go to the public comment.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Good
Chair
afternoon,
and
Chief.
Council. Thank you for having me. I have some brief remarks. First and foremost, that we actually keep in mind that we have victims who are still grieving, and that they are number one. I am victim-oriented. I will always put the victims first. With respect to our officers, we have 3 of our officers who engaged this enemy, and they answered the call, and they killed the terrorist. 2 of them, as you know, were shot. They were recovering, and they are recovering well. But we have a lot of officers and staff who are deeply wounded in their heart and in their soul because we are peacemakers. And so wellness right now is important to our staff. And starting next week, we were doing debriefings emotionally, spiritually, physically, for 175 of our identified NOPD officers who were present. I have tried to live day in and day out being a person who believes in transparency. I am and will answer any all questions that I can, but not today. There will be a time and a place for reflective review of our actions. That is not today. There is presently, as we know, an open investigation by the Attorney General, rightfully so. My commitment to this city, my commitment to this city council, my commitment to my mayor and her staff is that this chief will cooperate without hesitation. Any and all investigations of us, I will stand, I will answer, and I have open book for people. This is indeed a time of high emotions. It is also a time for clear-minded, stable, and steady leadership. I believe that I am a woman with 43 years of experience. I have been in a couple of storms of my life. I know that I am equipped to lead us forward and to stand in any winds that blow on an after-action review. I will not resign. There is an axiom that you don't need a leader if you don't have anywhere to go. I believe, Mr. Chair, that the purpose of this committee meeting, as you expressed to me, was about going forward. I am here to address some preliminary positions about going forward. Again, I believe I can be that person to lead us forward, to ask the right questions, and to know the path. So tomorrow, I will be having a presser at 4:30 to announce that I have asked for one of the absolute top experts in this country on terrorism and hard targeting a city. And with his permission, I'm going to identify him now. But I want you to know that over the weekend, as I was having my own time of grieving and asking God's telling me how do I go forward with the steps and who's the right person. The name clearly came to me, and it is the former Commissioner of New York City, Bill Bratton. Commissioner Bratton was the commissioner 2 times in the city of New York, and also the Chief of Police of Los Angeles. He personally answered my call over the weekend, and he did agree that he would come forward and serve not only as my expert on how to hard target our city, but he is here to serve all of us. This is a community endeavor. I am in partnership with you. I will work with my city and all the residents and the visitors. I will work with my law enforcement partners. We were able to show within 24 hours from this event that we could provide a very safe Sugar Bowl for visitors and our own city residents. And we know that we are able to duplicate that. We also know that the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl committee has confidence that our safety plans are solid. We will be having a lot more resources, but the plans themselves are solid. So with that, I will do what I can to answer questions, but I have to tell you they will be limited, but I will answer what I can.
Mr. Hathaway.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Rick Hathaway. I'm the Public Works Director. We stand and mourn with the 14 victims and their families. We are also praying for the speedy recovery of all those injured, including the NOPD officers. DPW's mission is to assist and provide infrastructure for security measures in allegiance with the NOPD and Homeland Security.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Chief Kirkpatrick. So moving forward, all right, and I want to thank a few people, especially from our community, who reached out. Jeff Williams, some other names, folk who work in the defense industry who are from here, who operate out of Chicago and New York, who had questions about moving forward. Will we have monthly, weekly, bi-monthly meetings or audits that talk about our public safety assets and their condition in terms of each event moving forward? Or is that standard operating procedure already?
What I can tell you is that it's too preliminary to tell you the cadence. I will tell you that Commissioner Bratton will be here tomorrow, and in terms of his counsel and expertise, he is going to want a cadence. I need to speak with him about what that is. Now, I'm also in partnership with our state police, who also have an expert, I understand, that will be coming. I cannot tell you the cadence today because we learned that when we try to give you information, the facts may change and it becomes confusing to people. It is better for me to hold off and wait till that is ironed out before I can give you that.
Next question. Do we have a report that shows the condition of our safety assets, either from the report 10 years ago or the 2019 report? Do we have something that states the condition, like if you do inventory about my car or assets, the condition that they're in? Do we have something that exists that would give us a starting point to say that these assets can be used, should be used, replaced, or restored?
That may be a Homeland Security question for me because they maintain the assets. Okay. And so again, this is awfully early for me. If you had given me some questions beforehand, I probably could have looked that up for you, but I can't speak to that. I know inventory is probably managed by Homeland Security or some other departments as well. I don't know. And if you had given me the question, I probably could have done that homework for you.
Okay. Rick, do you know who manages bollards and wedges and barriers?
The The infrastructure is installed by the Department of Public Works at the request of Homeland Security and others. The operations and maintenance is either by Homeland Security or other departments. DPW does not do the maintenance of those facilities.
And have you ever been issued a report that says these bollards, these wedges, these barriers are in such condition or need to be replaced, reused, restored?
I understand there is an assessment of the bollards that are being removed presently, but I have not seen it, no.
Have you read the 2019 report that said city leaders were briefed on the condition of these assets?
I have not.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I'm going to speak up. I thought you said this is not an investigation.
No, it's not.
And so you asked me a question, I can't answer it, and therefore I look like I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know.
Well, let's go there then. The only reason why I asked the question was because if we're talking about moving forward, then it's an opportunity, because we're going to have events next weekend, this weekend.
All of that,
that's
as far as the list
I
and
just thought that was appropriate. Now, for me to ask questions about who's culpable, who, what, how, when, or where, that's not the question. The question is, what's the condition of our assets? That's not that probing to me, because I can tell you the condition of my car.
Mr. Chair, I have a very large department, a lot of divisions. So it's not something that I'd have to go over and make some inquiries. I do not want to come across as though I should know something that probably not yet I would be able to speak to that. And so I don't want to, people are going to assume I know every detail, and that would not be realistic to ask of me. And so when you ask me a question like that, it sets up a narrative that is probably not necessary.
Well, just to gain clarity, there are 100 more probing questions that could be answered. I just thought at basic, it would be a good point to let the public know that our assets are at least in condition, so they'll be ready this weekend, the next weekend. So that doesn't sound like investigative questions to me. That sounds like updated questions about, does the car work? Can I drive it? That's all.
Was that rhetorical? I'm sorry, I thought you...
No, I was just making this. We were staring at each other, so I was just trying to see if the stare meant something, or you were going to follow up with a comment. The one thing we do know is being defensive can create a whole nother sense of opportunity. And one thing I've never done is been an ambush council member or elected official. I asked basic questions because I know this will be spun a certain way that talked about the condition of our assets. And those two questions were really the only ones that I had. But I think I understand what's going on now. Councilmember Marino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to both of you all. I think we all understand that this is much bigger than just a committee meeting to get answers. As you mentioned, the Attorney General is doing an investigation. Councilmember Morrell tomorrow will open an investigation on the council side, taking a look at different contracting provisions around the bollards, what's happening with the bollards now, potentially moving even beyond that, seeing what's happening with the real-time crime center as well. And I do believe it is important to look back and figure out what gaps were there so that we don't have those gaps continuing. And I understand that these assessments will be thorough. So I would say this, though, the council will very much be looking at moving forward and what security provisions in the French Quarter look like moving forward, in collaboration, of course, with our state partners and our state legislators as well. But I will say this, on the issue, though, on our overall, I guess, infrastructure necessary to secure the quarter, everything that I'm seeing is that there's one department that's missing here that may have the answers, Mr. Chair, that you're looking for. And that department is the Department of Homeland Security. And just looking back at even some news releases from the past on New Year's Eve and on Sugar Bowl, and this is a news release going back to December 30th of 2021, it talks about how it's the New Orleans Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, that they're the ones activating the City Emergency Operations Center and really leading on all of where the infrastructure needs to go, directing where DPW should be putting certain resources, what's available, and they are the ones that are supposed to be doing that. I'm not even sure if the Emergency Operations Center was activated this time around for Sugar Bowl and New Year's Eve. Maybe, Mr. Hathaway, you can tell me if it was or not, as I'm assuming you would be part of that EOC deployment.
There was a preparation meeting, which is generally what's held before special events.
But that's different than activating the Emergency Operations Center. I've been there for emergencies when the Emergency Operations Center is in activation upstairs at City Hall, whether it's for an upcoming major event, whether it's for an upcoming potential hurricane. It's everything from media professionals to all different levels of government upstairs. That's the Emergency Operations Center. And so clearly that wasn't activated at this time. But even going back to previous administrations and talking to them, it was the Department of Homeland Security that was the one who pretty much on behalf of the mayor was to, deploy the different assets. So that's certainly one of the questions that I do think needs to be figured out very soon as to who is going to be that responsible agency to ensure that all the infrastructure necessary is deployed. And Chief, as you bring in Commissioner Bratton, from what I understand in conversations that I've had with you, is that Commissioner Bratton will be brought in with the Police and Justice Foundation, with them paying for his contract. Now, we have had consultants come in before by the Police and Justice Foundation, and the council was completely excluded from being able to have conversations with this consultant, to bring them particular information that we may have that we believe could be useful. And so I would like to have your commitment on the record that that will not be the case when Commissioner Bratton comes in, and that us as the City Council, who has responsibilities as well too as we move forward, will have access to him.
I had that personal conversation with the commissioner that I did expect that we would have an open conversation between the council and us, that this is a city partnership. You represent the constituents and the voices of the city. And so he understood, and he understands that we're going to be together.
I appreciate that. Those are all my questions at this point.
Yeah, but before I get to Councilmember Morrell, that kind of sets some light on another issue. You're willing to have those conversations, but I'm Chair of Criminal Justice, and you didn't have that conversation with me. And I don't know maybe why. I've always been respectful. I've always tried to be accommodating. But as someone who was chairing this meeting, I think it would have been right for maybe, hey, look, this is who the expert is going to be. This is what they're going to be. Their job description is going to be. This is who's going to pay for it. That would have been nice if the chair would have known. I would have given you that level of respect. Councilmember Morrell.
Wait. Just to be clear, though, the chief had this conversation, and she asked me to send this information to all the other council members, which and I agree.
You're not the chair of the
and when I
committee.
sent that information,
That tells me something,
No.
too.
But I also said that if you have any questions or concerns, the chief asked that you reach out to her. I'm just making.
Everybody's comfortable dealing with who they're comfortable dealing with. I know who I am and where I'm from, and
I think she was trying to
the
do that as
community I
council.
represent. I understand that.
I think she was trying to do that as
in the community I
council.
represent. I understand that.
Tom, what more have we learned?
I think it's appropriate for us to micromanage what he's doing, but to your point earlier, and I know you were trying to set expectations, we do have to have some cadence of interaction to know what's happening, what's the basis of what's happening, and then how that's going to change policy in a way that isn't just, here's a press conference, here's what we're doing differently, and we don't know what led up to that, because that is what the public expects. I mean, I think the appropriate venue for that will likely be the Criminal Justice Committee at a regular cadence, and I'm sure you'll work with Councilmember Thomas to do that. But as much as you can socialize this person and not centralize the information and the planning that could change policy behind closed doors, the more public buy-in you're going to get. Because right now, people are scared. And I don't just mean people who are going to be visitors to the city during the Super Bowl, but people are scared who are here year-round. Mardi Gras is an international event, but first and foremost, it is a local event. And if we cannot assure the public that it will be safe, it will directly and detrimentally, permanently hurt. People are scared. And I don't just mean people who are going to be visitors to the city during the Super Bowl, but people are scared who are here year-round. Mardi Gras is an international event, but first and foremost, it is a local event. And if we cannot assure the public that it will be safe, it will directly and detrimentally, permanently hurt the people of the city of New Orleans. So as you have these conversations, as this consultant comes down, we have to have public engagement on some level, or else it will undermine whatever he's doing before he starts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments from council members?
I'd like to comment after the cards.
The speaker, do we have any online comments? Okay, we'll do the public comments first. Ms. Naomi Jones.
Good afternoon again. Naomi Jones, 206 Momus, not representing anybody and not being paid. I just want to start by saying that I know we're all hurting, and that includes you folks up there. Traumas doesn't care how smart you are or how powerful you are, and not to minimize the people who were on the scene at the time. You didn't have to be at ground zero to be affected by it. I know because I was a student in New York in 2001. I want to say that I was recently run off the road by a crazy driver in November on my bicycle, and I went to the police station and I spoke to a really wonderful officer who did everything he could to help, but essentially told me there was nothing they could do because I didn't let him hit me. And I understand that. I understand how difficult it is to make an assault case. I was a prosecutor for 13 years. What I get is that we can't police our way out of crazy driving and reckless driving and cruel driving after the fact. We've got to build the infrastructure as a community, as a city, that prevents it from ever happening. And that means bullards, that means traffic calming, that means restricting who can go through these crowded spaces and when, if at all. And I know that we can do that. Just making the speed limit, for example, in the French Quarter 15 doesn't mean anything to Tommy Terrorist or Frankie Fresh Wheels. They're going to go 16. So we have to build the streets so they can't go 16 miles an hour. We have to build these infrastructures as a community and not just rely on the police. And I know that we can do this, and thank you very much. Oh, please don't forget Frenchmen in the other areas of the city.
Thank you. Thank you. Terry Frick.
Hi, Fairgrounds area, District D. How do we address safety in the community without acknowledging the violence of U.S. imperialism as the primary contradiction? On January 1st, New Orleans woke to the news that Shamsuddin Jabbar deliberately drove a car into a crowd on Bourbon Street, exited his vehicle, and began shooting at police. On the same day, Matthew Leibelsberger blew up a Tesla truck outside Trump Tower in Las Vegas. Both rented their vehicles online from Turo, served in the U.S. Army, and spent time at Fort Bragg, home to the largest domestic military base housing the largest psychological operations unit. Both served in Afghanistan. Our soldiers are stationed around the globe at over 800 overseas U.S. military bases, being commanded to commit violence daily. They return home and are unable to cope with the actions they've done. Some self-harm, as did Leibelsberger, by committing a violent public suicide, as there is a current crisis of suicide amongst military personnel. Others turn the violence on those around them. Unfortunately, Jabbar chose to drive hundreds of miles from home to enact violence on those he did not know who had not harmed him, as surely he was trained to do in Afghanistan. We cannot make the community safe while our government is violent abroad. No amount of enhanced law enforcement presence can impact random acts of violence in a nation where there are more guns than people, in a nation whose primary manufacturing jobs are making weapons of war, which then ship around the world via the port of New Orleans. The U.S.'s unhoused population increased 18% in 2024, which is violent and on purpose, as Americans increasingly struggle to provide basic needs of water, food, shelter, healthcare, and literacy, while the dollar collapses as the global reserve currency. Not addressing this as a root cause of petty crime also makes us unsafe. As we continue to send Americans overseas to commit acts of terror, and make no mistake, those at the receiving end of U.S. bombs and bullets consider it terror, with soldiers returning home without any mental health care to cope with what they've done on behalf of a rapacious capitalist system with a for-profit war machine, we will continue to be unsafe. It is moot to talk about safety without addressing the root cause that threatens us, which is U.S. foreign policy.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
Good evening, everybody in the House. Thanks for the opportunity to speak at this criminal justice meeting. I'm going to take my subject into the French Quarter sad tragedy that happened. Many people have asked me to come up here today, and even though I don't feel well to come up here, but the facts must be addressed to you all. When Jeff Landry became the governor of Louisiana, the first words that came out his mouth, that he's making weapons legal for anyone to carry into the city of New Orleans. He is the one that gave that fella confidence that committed that crime in the quarters that he could come into the city and carry a gun. What I'm saying to you all, Jeff Landry has used the system, mostly from that statement, to cause division and dissension among black people, hoping that when they have a quarrel against each other, that they will shoot up each other. That's sad, but look at what it turned out to be. Jeff Landry, many of us are afraid of his name. And even that he tried to destroy this council. When he came aboard, he took the authority away from y'all, and he brought it to Baton Rouge. Every final decision will come from him. But the saddest part about all that, He is responsible for what went down in that French Quarter. And I don't care if he don't like it. I speak the truth. I'm a man. I address the people, and I address what the people request for me to address. And also, it's not him alone. The people say Ann Kilpatrick is to blame. She is responsible.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
For the people under her. She has killed the people.
Mr. Morgan, thank you. Your time is up.
And all she's about, money in the South.
Thank you.
She'll be fine today if there was football.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Laura Harris next. Thank you, Laura Harris.
Hello, my name is Laura Harris. I am the Education and Policy Manager at Bike Easy. I just wanted to speak in support of increasing pedestrianization, restricting car access in the French Quarter. I personally worked as a pedicab driver for 9 years in the French Quarter, so I know very intimately the traffic patterns. This is a historic neighborhood that was built long before automobiles. If we care about historic preservation, let's preserve a way of life that existed there. I think this tragedy may not have happened if, the safety measures that people were calling for many years, especially in 2020 in the pandemic, we could have seized that opportunity to really implement some, amazing safety measures and also, things like that would have really increased the quality of life for people living and visiting in the French Quarter. There's some great examples of pilot programs like the Uber and Lyft drop-offs that's happening on Frenchman Street that restricts the amount of cars going on that street. I think let's really, pick up some of that momentum and, do what we need to do to find the solutions to restrict car access in the French Quarter. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Courier or Syrier? Ms. Garcia, I'm sorry. Ms. Lindsay Garcia.
I really didn't have anything prepared because I actually wanted to look all of you in the eyes as I said this, because I want to apologize personally for what happened back here in October when we were celebrating or honoring the 5th anniversary of the Hard Rock collapse. Because, young lady, I would imagine you would think that there would have been an event in 2020 that would have said to the city of New Orleans, you know what, maybe we should address the infrastructure here. And what event was that? The event on October 12th of 2019, which killed 3 of the workers, and then you left 2 of the workers hanging on side of the building to rot for the next 311 days. Ask me how I know, because I was there. And maybe I've done a poor job at communicating to you that this is the job. This is what you signed up for. I don't envy you. If anything, I am disappointed. I'm glad that you're not running the investigation, because I've been waiting over 1,900 days, President Moreno, in order to do it, in order for you to have any investigation into who was responsible for that. So are you the one that's going to be running it, Mr. Morrell, the investigation into this incident? Do I have your word that you are going to follow through with it? And I would like my time stopped while he addresses.
I'll wait till you're done talking.
The bottom line is, we have issues, and what Mr. Morgan was sitting here addressing, or this woman was addressing and talking about, was what you cut me off for in the middle of. Within this city, you repeatedly do not fund education. There are no parks and recreations. You do not. Our criminal justice system is crap. Our health care is crap. And I apologize from the depths of my soul that I do not walk in here and communicate it the way that you want. But I will tell you this. I am tired of getting mad at clowns whenever the city of New Orleans is bringing ourselves to the circus, because having an investigation starting tomorrow is too late. You showing up here and telling our New Orleans City Council that you're not willing to answer questions is unsatisfactory 7 days after the fact, because the time to do that was a long time ago. And in the last 7 days, we've had 3 collapses. Yes. I'm tired of the clowns. I'm mad at the city of New Orleans.
Hey guys, let's have some order. Mr. Gary Bollier.
Wait, but before we get to the
Councilmember Morrell to respond.
Every investigation that I have headed up on the city council, I have brought to completion with action.
January 23rd, 2020, I sat right there when you created the Canal Street Special Collapse Committee, and not a single, that's what I've been trying to tell you, JP, Freddie, Oliver Thomas, it's why I've been in here for 5 years. Because there have not been one. You have not done one. And sitting here and creating a historical historical event in order to a designation is not sufficient.
Ms. Garcia, your time is up.
And more importantly,
Ms. Garcia.
we're still collapsing throughout
Your time, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Gary Ballier.
I understand what I had to say.
Appreciate it.
Council, people in the chambers. I don't know if we did it before I came in late, but let's take 1 second to remember what happened and pray for the souls of people that were affected on January 1st.
Yeah, we did that.
I'm going to speak to preparedness going forward. I mean, I saw the response on the news of how the NOPD neutralized that threat. Good job. I've seen it done before. It couldn't have been done any better than that. What could be done better going forward is our preparedness and readiness, so our performance would be optimal, and how we handle the aftermath and things like this. All these things are available to all the disciplines: police, fire, EMS, public servants, for free. FEMA's Center for Domestic Preparedness, Department of Homeland Security in Anderson, Alabama, hosts almost 200 types of classes. One class offered there, IED awareness and safety procedures. Are you familiar with Center for Domestic Preparedness, Chief? Anderson, Alabama? How many of your people are there now? I'm sorry, if you can't ask that question, that's okay.
You could also pose it in writing to her in advance.
I will do it. I mean, I don't mean it like that. I'm just trying to make a point.
Councilmember Green.
I'm sorry, but this is not an opportunity
I'm not trying
to blast someone in public.
I get it.
Bottom line, okay,
I get it. I get it.
All right. You can.
Mr. Ballier, you got 30 seconds.
Right. You stole 10 of them.
Yeah.
What I think we need is to look at our training in our first responder areas. There's stuff available to this city, to the country. It was put there after 9/11. It's free. Free. They transport you there, they train you, they feed you, and they house you while they're there. There's things that government officials at that place should look at. It's called the Center for Domestic Preparedness.
Thank you.
Homeland Security. Google it. You see what I'm talking about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ballier. April Camarada.
Mr. Chair, as Ms. Camarada comes, I'd like to...
Before Ms. Camarada's time starts,
I just want to make it clear that Mr. Ballier shared with me as I came in this morning that information. I will share that with Chief Kirkpatrick. But at the end of the day, it sure would be nice sometimes if information would be asked for in advance or presented in advance instead of the day of, because it seems like it's an attempt to out someone instead of sharing information. I will share it. Okay, I will. I said it seems like it.
And just to remind the council, whenever we cut off someone from speaking, then that affects their time. So if it's not urgent, or if we could stop the time, if one of the council members has something to say, so it doesn't deprive the public of the time that's allotted to them. Ms. April Camarada.
Hello. I have a business in an apartment on the 800 block of Royal Street, and there needs to be more protections for people in the quarter. Just from what I see on a daily basis, it's pretty scary. There's also been a rise of people using vehicles as weapons all across the country, so I think that just really needs to be taken seriously, not for the quarter, but parade routes too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Bruce Riley.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
I was at the hearing in 2017 in the quarter. As many of you know, I've been living in the quarter for about 13 years, and you can't say this wasn't anticipatable. You weren't here, but many of us were. There was a whole demonstration on truck bombs coming down the street. There was a whole commitment of $40 million for all this protection stuff. So it's not about the money and it's not about the foresight. It's about the execution. It's about the middlemen that are pinching the money, that are not doing the job. It's about, oh my goodness, who would have suspected that a Mardi Gras bead would fall into the thing and break the whole system, right? I said you should give $1 million to 40 community-based organizations will do more to prevent crime in the quarter than giving $40 million for a bunch of cameras. But I lost the argument. Y'all won the argument. And what'd you do with the $40 million? You flushed it down the toilet and watched some guy drive down the street. I was out in the corridor with 100 people in traffic. And you know what? We saw the traffic coming. I had a big old sound system that worked. You know why? Because I was in charge of it. And I know who's in charge of stuff at my organization, right? And I know, where's Colin Arnold, who's head of Homeland Security? He should be right in that seat. Right? He crashed a car his damn self and got his job back a month later. You got a guy who's crashing cars into parked cranes or whatever he did, and now he's in charge of protecting us from cars crashing. Where's his ass? He should be fired immediately, along with all the other people. I worked in New York City on large events before I went to law school. And if you were in charge of something and something went down, not only were you bounced, you would not get a job again. This city is really good at hiring their cousin and having no oversight and not getting anything done. And when that needs to end, and y'all are running for office this fall, your whole thing has to be about execution, hiring the right people, getting stuff done, not about this like consultant crap. Bill Bratton, broken windows in New York City, that's not what we need here. Like I said, we already had all the consultants. We all know what we're doing. We need to hire people and get stuff done. And thank goodness some construction guy left a damn crane there.
Thank you.
We gotta take a whole lot more lives.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. And Colin Arnold was invited to participate. Ms. Nellie Katzen.
He didn't show up.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I agree with the gentleman who said that the response was very well executed, but the preparedness was absolutely an atrocity. This intentional act of terror was atrocious. But what makes me so angry and so upset standing here is that this very same thing could have happened by accident. I know because I've survived an incident very similar to that, and it wasn't the first to happen in New Orleans. In 2016, there was this attack in Nice. In 2018, a truck rammed into a bunch of people watching Endymion. In 2019, a Dodge Charger ran into 12 people riding their bikes, killing 2 of my friends and giving me PTSD. In 2019, that same year, we created a plan in the city of New Orleans to make better infrastructure on our streets, especially in the French Quarter. Cars hitting people is a known risk. We have the equipment, we have the money, we have the plans. Why aren't we doing it? It's a coordination failure. I hope that if any good can come out of this absolutely and truly senseless tragedy, it will be the courage that the public officials sitting before me and all of those who maybe didn't have the courage to come to the room today can actually get it done. It's not about the money, it's not about the plans, it's about doing the thing. This shouldn't have happened in this way. Every single time somebody has been run down by a car in the city of New Orleans shouldn't have happened. We know better. Let's do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Katzen, you mentioned 2016, 17, and 2019. Some of us weren't here then, but we're here now. And we're going to do what we can to make sure those reports are part of moving forward. Thank you. Fisher Schaefer.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Fisher Schaefer, here on behalf of Faubourgs Forward, a community advocacy group. We work to make our city more livable. Our condolences go to the victims of the mass murder by truck less than a week ago, a little more than a week ago. We hope we don't have to experience this event ever again. Twice in the last decade, 2 different mayors have tried to pedestrianize parts of the French Quarter. With its narrow streets, beautiful architecture, and countless pedestrians, is it time we rethink who can drive a vehicle in that space? A French Quarter resident and business owner, Chris Olson, has started a petition on change.org, which has gathered 3,037 signatures to pedestrianize Bourbon and Royal Street. Let's lead the country in pedestrian-friendly spaces for our residents and visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Renata Collins.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, Ms. Collins, time over, please. It was at 52 by the time she walked up there. Could we please start at 2 minutes, please? Let's not cheat the public. It's not that much time as it is. Let's try to, at least when people start talking, give them the 2 minutes they deserve.
Thank you so much for that. My name is Renata Collins. I'm a resident of Orleans Parish. And first I would like to say is thank you for what you've done, Ms. Fitzpatrick. This event was an unforeseen event. And it'd be different if it was Mardi Gras and we were already expecting this to be a thing. So I also asked myself, if those barriers were in place and they're at a 10-mile-per-hour radius of protection and the rate the driver was going was super faster than that, how much more danger could we really have had take place? One of the things that we must consider in this whole thing is not only do we have the equipment, but how the equipment will work when it's going against a force. That day we lost as many people as we lost, but if we could have had the things that we're fussing about, we could have had more casualties. I've noticed a lot of division. And we've learned in school, in high school, and even in elementary, they say divided we fall, but together we can stand. So my heart goes out to you guys because you're putting your lives on the line, even the council. If I can see anything that come together, it would be a form of unity. How can we turn our pain into passion? How can we turn our questions into solutions? I believe that is the overall objective that we should be focusing on. It's easy, very easy to say who's at fault. But when you have a family, which I believe we are here in the city of New Orleans, we're not to find the blame, but we're supposed to come together and make a solution. Yes, we're in pain. Yes, I'm saddened. But at the end of the day, what are we doing to resolve the matters that's at hand?
Thank you. Rhonda Finley. Rhonda Finley. Followed by Aaron Holmes.
Hi, Ann. How are you? Hi, council members. Chief, it was an amazing video to see the police officers run towards the danger. It's time we look as a community to our solutions, and while our problems are the focus today, solutions should become foremost. I come here specifically to speak about the French market. We often talk about it as absent from the French Quarter, but it is a heavily trafficked tourism destination here in the city of New Orleans. And I see council members up here that actually have an active role. And I hope I can have your support moving forward because I own a business at the French market and I feel a little trepidation in speaking out, but I know y'all have my back. I've been a tenant there since 2008, and I want y'all, when you have the opportunity, to bring the security committee back that was dissolved many years ago, maybe before you all were seated in your seats. So I know we have historical issues to look at as to whether you would have known that or not. With only 39 seconds left to speak, the parking lot has no security. Homeland Security should be sitting here. My business partner was beaten unconscious on a Saturday at the Colonnade in the French Market on June 29th. The reaction from the French Market Corporation was abysmal. We have no safeguards there. We need to sit and have an open discussion and include it in the bigger dialogue because of the amount of tourists that visit that section. I am here at your service to participate that in a solution-forward dialogue.
The next speaker is Aaron Holmes. Thank you. Followed by Tony Duplessis Jones.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Erin Holmes. I'm the executive director of the View Carre Property Owners, Residents, and Associates. And I'm not here to point fingers at individuals or entities. Basically, like everybody in this room, I'm just heartbroken for the victims and their families. And I'm sad, and I'm very angry. And I think we're all trying to hold those very real emotions in check today. But I can't help but notice a pattern of events. Going back to, and it was already mentioned, the Hard Rock collapse killed 3 people. It was supposed to initiate fast reform. We have a building, the Plaza Tower, that has been spitting components since 2021, and these streets are still open. We knew that the Bourbon Street bollards were inoperable since 2017. A vacant building on the 1200 block of Charter Street has caught fire 5 times in the past year because people keep breaking in and vandalizing and setting fires. This is right in the heart of the residential end of the French Quarter, and we cannot seem to get code enforcement, NOPD, NOFD, and the rest of the entities on the same page to make some kind of change there before more blocks go up in flames. We've known that the Super Bowl has been coming for 5 years. And yet we started initiating a lot of these major improvements and changes in the French Quarter maybe 6 months ago. The road repairs for the vast majority of the French Quarter streets started in December. This is, I don't want to say it's too little. I don't want to say it's too late. I'm just really concerned. I do feel that for 5 or 6 years, since I've taken my position at VC Pora, that we've been basically watching our parents fight, the council and the administration. And I feel like we as residents have become leveraged in a drawn-out and very real and very public divorce settlement.
Thank you. Tony Duplessis-Jones. Tony?
Hi, my name is Tony. I am a member of New Orleans Community Oversight of Police. My thoughts go to the families of the 14 victims killed and all those in recovery. I'm speaking today in hopes that we can make ourselves safe without staring into a different kind of tragedy by opening the door for outside policing agencies to make civil rights violations against New Orleanians. The incoming Trump administration will be a period where our civil rights will be tested and violated, and our governor has already made attacks against those rights with laws that legalize the use of vehicles as weapons against protesters. I'm worried that some of these outside agencies left unchecked can lead us into further tragedy. I'm also outraged by the comments of our District Attorney, Jason Williams, and the New Orleans Metropolitan Crime Commission for urging us to look to the response to 9/11 as an inspiration for safety. The post-9/11 period was marked by civil rights violations, especially the violations of non-white people and black Muslims, like in the case of the Newburgh Four, who were wrongly entrapped by the FBI, who invented a dangerous situation where there was none. I worry that the 100 military police on our street are here on behalf of the governor to occupy, not protect. The Louisiana State Police are under a DOJ investigation for violating the rights of civil rights of black people, and no one has been sentenced to any prison time for the murder of Ronald Green. It's been over 5 years. They've engaged in many reckless car chases since they've been in New Orleans, and they also don't respect any of our sanctuary policies, and they routinely stop our undocumented friends. Our solution to safety should not look like involving and inviting the militarization of New Orleans streets, reckoning back to Hurricane Katrina. It shouldn't involve welcoming any police agency that's under investigation for civil rights violations. And I encourage the people here today to come to the federal consent decree hearing. At noon on Monday, we'll be out there picketing, wearing red, showing our opposition to the end of the consent decree. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Tony. Clark Thompson, followed by Andrew Montverde. Clark Thompson.
Clark Thompson, 3201 DeSoto Street. I'm not sure if you can read this, but we should keep weapons out of the French Quarter. I think it's pretty obvious when you phrase it this way. Let's keep the weapons out of the French Quarter going forward. Chief, my deepest condolences to you and all your team. I do have some points for you. I'm a manager myself. I'm accountable for quality control, and I've had to manage large teams in the past. And it's my observation, and it's my observation since the incident, that there's not a bottom-up flow of information. That's just a for instance, at this moment, 2 of your archers protecting Bourbon Street are facing the wrong direction. There needs to be, we've learned all this time, if you see something, say something. Well, I, as a civilian, have no really good route to see something, to see these archers facing the wrong direction, and to say something. I did say something to one of your junior police officers at the 8th District. He passed it up to a senior commander who then said to me, "We don't have time for that. We're fully deployed. Everyone's deployed, and we're very busy." And so it was brushed off. But the junior officer actually saw the threat, recognized this threat. So I hope that we can start focusing on more of a bottoms-up inflow of information from your staff. Those are the guys with the situational awareness. Those are the guys with the boots on the ground. And I hope that as we bring in this security expert, that the guys in the blue shirts are going to have input and have access to go and provide information. Because the situational awareness of your guys in the white shirts is not always sufficient. It's the guys that are actually on the ground. As with my own work, it's similar. So my best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Montverde? Mr. Montverde.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see all of you again. I'm Andrew Montverde. I'm here on behalf of New Orleans Firefighters Association. That's the union that represents New Orleans firefighters. And wanted to speak to our concerns. Well, first and foremost, our respect to all our fellow first responders, police, EMS, fire, and the other agencies that often health, safety, permits, and all that actually go into a lot of these scenes and provide a lot of the background support that's necessary. Community groups, COPS 8, VC PORA. What I want to caution as a first responder at Cat Engine 9, I work in the French Quarter. French Quarter is my first up territory. Me and the captains at 29 and 714 know the area very well. What concerns us going forward is that we want to make sure that all threats continue to be considered. Been five fires in the French Quarter this month, 3 on Bourbon Street last month, one of which was a 3-alarm fire. I want to remind you how many times a day we prevent something from growing to a newsworthy incident or somebody stops breathing. So what we want to make sure we're part of the conversation of as we move forward is that all threats continue to be considered, because things happen every single day that still must be dealt with in a super efficient, timely manner. It was very lucky. I don't want to say lucky. This incident happened in the first 200 blocks of Bourbon Street. That allowed easier access for emergency services to get in. That would not be as true if it was in the 600, 700, 800 block of Bourbon Street for a variety of reasons. All I ask is that you take advantage of the centuries worth of experience available to you while formulating these plans and speak to the individuals that respond to these incidents in real time, please. And I think most of you know how to get a hold of us, and we're always happy to provide any support that we possibly can. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Earl Hagans. Mr. Hagans.
How y'all doing? My name is Earl Hagans.
Good evening.
I'm a formerly incarcerated person. I need to lead with that. Being in these positions, and I'm speaking of people in positions, you got to have some tough skin. First off, I want to give a shout out to one of our members, a vote member, Latanya Kennedy. She lost her brother, Terry Kennedy, in this tragic event. And I also want to give a shout out to some of the bouncers, some of the waitresses, the sex workers, some of those people, they showed up, they helped some of those people out there too. I want to give a shout out to those people also. And I really don't have much to say, but I will say this. I was in Dallas when this happened, and when I saw it, the first thing I thought about was they passed a law for people to drive their vehicles into people. They passed a law where they get to drive their vehicles into a group of people if I feel my life is in danger. I didn't think that this was what it was, but the first thing that came to my mind was, oh shit, that law empowered people to drive into a group of people. Second thing I thought was, this is what happened when we allow people, we give people out, Homeland Security, control over our house. Now, Chief said she don't know who the answers to these questions, and I'm saying to myself, as somebody in position to know these things, who are we to rely on? Who's supposed to know these things?
Thank you, Ms. Hagan.
Who's supposed to know these things?
Ms. Hagan, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Who's supposed to know? Who's
Any comments from council members? Councilmember Giarrusso.
Yeah, I was late to the party and was elsewhere. I guess offline, I want to understand better kind of how governance works in the French Quarter from somebody in the administration, because what I'm worried about is, and I think this has all been expressed by my colleagues before, there's an alphabet soup of DPW, NOFD, NOSEP, sanitation, parks and parkways, and I always worry when you have too many people doing something. French Quarter Management District is there too, that it's hard to have continuity as a result of that. To Chief and Rick, you're Chief, the fourth different superintendent since I've been elected, and Rick, you're the fifth different Public Works Director since I've been here, and it's really hard for us, the city, to give you the continuity and coordination we need when there's been so many different leadership changes. And I think as a legislative body, how do we help provide the resources everybody needs, from mental health to your officers and first responders and everybody who's been there, which I think is paramount at this moment for people who were there and saw what happened and are responding to what's happened, and obviously the fact that they have to do Super Bowl and Mardi Gras coming up, to physical resources, to our continuing investment in prevention. But at the same time, I need more clarity, and I think we all would like some more on the governance of how this works in the quarter specifically, because I don't want anyone to feel like they're not getting the resource they need, or information isn't being communicated, or somebody unintentionally, inadvertently is hoarding something and somebody else doesn't know. And my view right now is that is what's led to a lot of the finger pointing, is this agency had a report, was it shared with the council? This agency does this, did this department know about that? And until we kind of get a better handle on what governance looks like and who is responsible, and making sure that our partners in our city agencies know all of those things, I want to make sure that that gets resolved. And I've spoken, I know all of my colleagues are concerned about this. I've spoken with the administration. They said no expense will be spared when it comes to the Super Bowl and to Mardi Gras. I share that feeling that we want to make sure you have the resources. Chief, my understanding is you don't have enough barricades. We need to get you those. I'm not going to wait till Mardi Gras for that to happen. If we need to lease them, we're going to do that. If we have to go to other parishes to go get things, let's make sure that that happens and that you get what you need. But at the same time, my concern right now is until there is a good governance model and continuity and coordination of efforts, all we're doing is the blame game and finger pointing, and we need that to be eliminated so we know where the responsibility lies and how we solve and make this better for the future. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
I think Councilmember Morrell has a question.
Councilmember, questions before closing comments? These are just closing comments. Councilmember Harris.
Well, Chief Kirkpatrick, I want to start where you started, which is to commend the 3 officers who were on the scene who took down the terrorists. I also know that the first responders really took a mental health hit, as Councilmember Giarrusso just alluded to. EMS, firefighters, your folks, the people who were on the scene, who helped and assisted, who are not first responders but became first responders because they had to be. So we will do everything that we can to ensure that any first responder gets the mental health services that they need. I know I was in the EOC when this all went down and saw some images that will be with me for a long time. And we have to take care of ourselves. A woman who spoke said, this is a time for unity and not dissension. And so I think we need to come together as a community to figure out what happened, how we can avoid this in the future, and how we can support one another, because that's ultimately what needs to happen. Rick, I know your team was out there as well, and again, we oftentimes don't think of DPW as first responders or other city agencies as first responders, but I know that they are and were, and whatever resources that they need, we will help provide that. So I want to thank your teams. I know that there's more to talk about and discuss as we prepare for Mardi Gras, as we prepare for the Super Bowl, and we're here to help, not to divide. Thank you.
Councilmember King.
Well, first of all, I want to give my condolences to those who lost their lives and the families who are still mourning. Praying for a speedy recovery for those who are injured. I want to thank NOPD for putting their life on the line, for preventing further casualties by killing the attacker. And I want to give my commitment to the public and to the members of this city to make the French Quarter and the entire city safer moving forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Marino.
Thank you. I made most of my comments initially, but I'll just say this. There are 8 victims remaining at University Medical Center, and I appreciate the FBI opening up the Victims Assistance Center. I think that's great, but it is difficult for victims who've been impacted to go to this center, and so we need to ensure that advocates are instead meeting victims where they're at and meeting their needs. This has been an issue. We've been working to resolve this through other advocacy groups, and I appreciate the other advocacy groups that have stepped forward, including United Way, that have been working to meet victims where they're at. I'll also mention that the Greater New Orleans Foundation has raised about $1.5 million to assist victims as well. On a variety of different types of needs, everything from potential, finances because of being off of work, to assisting with food needs, to assisting with mental health. And so I do hope that that money that has been raised does get out the door very quickly to victims, and that there isn't a lot of red tape involved with this as well. So those are just my comments there on that, but we really need to lean in on not just thinking that victims who are injured and their family members who are trying to take care of them are going to be able to make it to the center and pick up flyers and fill out a bunch of paperwork. We need to make it a lot easier for victims who are dealing with this tragedy.
Councilmember Green.
I just want to start off by just adding to what Councilmember Burrell said relative to victims. I do appreciate the fact that the FBI came in town and was able to mobilize their victim assistance effort in a relatively timely manner. I do want to also let the public know here, in support of what we do in New Orleans, that the point person from the FBI was impressed that we had a number of victim support organizations that were ready to move, and they moved immediately. They moved that evening, that morning. They were out there on the streets, on Bourbon Street, working with those who were injured and families. And I just want to say that it's part of what New Orleans is about. but that we support the victims of crime, because the victims of crime are the people that we should focus on, which is why we want an extremely strong justice system and also law enforcement community and the like. And we want to have social services in place, because people should not be victimized by crime, but if they are, they should be offered support. I also want to take an opportunity to thank our EMS workers, but also there's a group of people that we don't talk about much, and that's the people on Bourbon Street who were there, who came out of the bars, who came out and saw people on the street and provided them with assistance. When we talk about the need to unify, we can talk about the fact that we can unify around some very, very important facts, and that was that people who were there inside those locations, who saw and witnessed trauma, offered their assistance to those who were injured immediately, and it's appreciated, and it had some effect. I saw a Bourbon Street bartender after the fact who saw something that he imagined that he would never see again, but he had to go to work, so he went to work, and he's suffering at that time, but he knows about the Victims Assistance Center and its availability. I want to take an opportunity, and it's not just saying it because it's something that I say often, my applause to the members of the New Orleans Police Department. Not only the officers who were there, but the officers who responded immediately to that crisis. Those officers who took down this terrorist obviously prevented others from being injured. But what you see on the video of them running toward the scene of screaming and running toward the scene of shooting is exactly what we want to see as a city. We say that our training puts them in that position, but also their heart. To be able to go toward the sound of somebody who just came down the street, driving a car, running over people, and doing the right thing and taking him out. I even saw an article where somebody was trying to say, I wonder if any of the bullets hit somebody else and that's why they died. No. They did the work that they were asked to do, and I appreciate it. Chief Kirkpatrick, thank you for your willingness to engage the community wherever the community asks you to be. You've been to many meetings that I've attended in the community. You've offered your assistance. You've been at meetings such as you've been to the district stations where there are meetings. I thank you also for your willingness to engage a consultant, to see if the consultant, Mr. Bratton, or whomever it might be, can provide you with assistance, because you're open to ideas and you're open to suggestions, and it's appreciated. I want to say to the public, I appreciate the fact that you all are here. This is a discussion, and I know I always take a little bit longer, but it's not going to be so long. But I want to say to the public, thank you for being here. There are sometimes people with whom I disagree who are here, but you're here because you're concerned about the city of New Orleans, and I appreciate it. I want to encourage you to get involved with the law enforcement community. Every month at every district station, there is a meeting. There is a district station meeting. There is also a police community advisory board for which we are soliciting applications right now. And also at every district station, there is a social worker. You may be able to refer someone to a social worker to get them the assistance that they need. Unfortunately, this incident has overshadowed something that's very, very important that we all need to know. Our city is still moving in the right direction relative to crime. The statistics have come out relative to last year, and in the major categories of violent crime, we're still down 30+% in every category, maybe 35%. That's because of the community and also our law enforcement community, and I appreciate it. But I'm going to close with just this very important fact. We want to find answers. We want to hold someone accountable for a terrible incident such as this. And my condolences to the family members of those who lost a loved one and to those who are injured. We are with you, and whatever we can do, we'll assist you. The terrorist must not win. He will win if we are disunified and if we are at each other's throats and we don't continue to remember how important it is for us to work together. Remember, this is a terrorist who came to the city of New Orleans twice and scoped out his targets, scoped out how he was going to kill people. He came and took an STR. He had sense enough to get an STR and use it to make bombs. He tried to use chemicals that he couldn't use. He put bombs. Remember, he walked into the French Quarter and put 2 bombs in place, so it's not just about vehicles. He was on a bicycle going throughout the French Quarter, and he scoped out his territory. So you can ride a bicycle and you can walk. If you're hell-bent on killing yourself and others, if you are just purely evil, as this person was, you will unfortunately find a way. At the end of the day, this person said he would not kill his own family because it would not give him enough attention. That if he went on a street such as Bourbon Street where people were enjoying themselves, getting ready for a new year, that he could have more of an impact. He is going to have taken to his grave many of the answers that we want to achieve. But at this time, to all of us, no matter what your political spectrum is, it's a time for us to be unified as a city of New Orleans so that we can address the issues that we need to address to be more secure and that we can provide the support to those who need support. I know that there will be investigations. The FBI has an investigation going on. The Attorney General is going to do so. The City Council is going to do so. We have other investigations, certainly because agencies were impacted. But the most important thing that I think that we should remember is that the city of New Orleans is not going to cower to the wills of a terrorist. We are not going to become disunified. We are going to do everything that we can to put our citizens' safety and our visitors' safety first. And I thank all of those who participated, especially in the recovery efforts and also helping those, including and especially our law enforcement community, for the outstanding work that you've done. As a city, we stand strong. It's important for us to stand strong for the entire nation. Thank you.
Councilman Thomas, you want that one to speak?
Yeah, there's a family member of one of the victims who's here, and we would appreciate if you want to make a statement, especially in honor of your loved one. Thank you, Councilmember Morrell.
Good afternoon. I am the baby sister of Latasha Polk. So we didn't find out about my sister until Saturday. So we are like all over the place. But my sister left a 14-year-old son. And I'm curious, he's transitioning into young adulthood. What type of solutions, what type of resources do we have to help transition him to cope? Because he then goes into manhood, and this incident is a lifelong effect. He can't get his mama back. We cannot be his moms. We're only his aunts. We're only his family members. I'm curious to know, we keep hearing about money. That's not going to bring my sister back. Truthfully, we don't care about the money. But my nephew has to be comfortable. He still has to live a life of means. And I'm trying to figure out what long-term reinvestment and support for our broken families do they have in place? Does the city have in place? Is there an oversight committee to ensure that the money is going directly to the families and to the right causes? So again, my nephew is 14 without any parents. Let's be clear, because his father is incarcerated. So we're stuck raising, and not stuck, but we're left raising a 14-year-old boy to the best of our knowledge because he doesn't have any parents. So what type of guidance or assistance can we get for that?
I am a member of an organization, and I will talk to you afterwards, called the Silverback Society. It's a mentoring group, and it's men and women, but mostly men, who are committed to providing resources and support to young men who need it. I promise you that I will talk to you afterwards, and I will put you in contact with the executive director of that organization who can help. As far as the money is concerned, obviously we'll have, there's other...
Well, I think Godolphin and the mayor have established a fund. I think the question is, what's the extent, how do you access that, and how it can be used? We can't answer those questions here, but I'm sure the proprietors or the keeper of the fund could answer that, and we'll be glad to direct you there when the meeting is over. Have somebody talk to you about how you access those funds and what they represent.
Thank you. I'm going to
Councilmember
have Sheree on my staff come and talk to you, get your contact information. I'll directly connect you with some of the advocacy groups so that they can meet with you and get a full assessment of your needs, and then based on that, they can start referring you where you need to go.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you. I appreciate, Councilman Thomas, you giving that, giving those individuals who did not have an opportunity to speak, but had something to add, that opportunity right there, and I appreciate that. As was said previously, the council does have its own investigation. All these investigations are on separate rails, addressing separate issues, and particularly because it is within our purview, we're looking at infrastructure challenges. What I will say is that I think Councilman Giarruso's comments were directly on the head. I will tell you that based upon just these very preliminary conversations and information we've received, the challenge with the French Quarter is that every decision is done by committee. Every decision that is made, whether it be a bollard, whether it be a sidewalk, there are 5 different groups that have to be consulted on whether it's done. And I think a challenge is going to be that in order for us to provide and do things in a way that is different, it is going to require us reviewing how things have been done in the past and how they have to be done different in the future. So I'm not prepared today because obviously when I say we are in the beginnings of this, we are just beginning to get document production and information, and it is going to be a somewhat involved process, but I can commit to you, all of those documents, all that information will, at the end of the investigation, be made public, and B, I can speak as someone who has headed investigations in my term on the council. We have investigations, and those investigations lead to action. Full stop. This is the first council in the history of the city of New Orleans that has ever terminated a governmental employee. So when this is resolved, when we find out what was not done properly, when we find out how money was spent or misspent, all of that information at the end of that investigation and at points during it will be made public for your review because we are a transparent council that is focused on results. Thank you.
Any other comments by council members? First of all, I want to thank everyone for participating. Let me be transparent. This particular meeting didn't go exactly as I planned, how I planned, I thought it would. And Councilmember Morell, you're correct. One of the things Councilmember Giarruso said was, he talked about the barricades. I thought at the least someone would be able to answer the question about how many barricades do we have? How many assets do we have? Are they ready for the second line this weekend? Are they ready for the parades of the Super Bowl or the other events? I also want to apologize because I thought that protocol and lines of communication were important, especially if you're trying to work together. And for Councilmember Green's comments about being unified, it's hard to be unified when people are petrified. And when you talk about response, I think the chief may not have wanted to answer my minute questions, but I was at the emergency room before you got there with your officers, because that's what I was trained to do. As someone who lived in the shelter after a disaster and whose family relied on people checking on us. So this wasn't an effort on my part to investigate, but to at least have basic answers about basic questions about what's in our inventory, not who's on first, not whose fault it was, or not what agency dropped the ball, or why we didn't review assets after the report 10 years ago that said many of the bollards and barriers weren't in place, or the 2019 report, where I think most of us weren't here then. It was just to give the public the assurance that a wedge, a bollard, a barrier, that we had what we at least needed to move forward to protect our citizens. But given what I understand here, and this happens within City Hall, people have favorites, who they talk to, who they give information to. And let me say this real clear. I may not be a favorite son, but I'm a native son. And just like New Orleans, I ain't going nowhere. So I would hope moving forward that there's a unity of purpose and respect for each individual. My complexion may be different, but I matter. That we respect everybody in their position and their authority, and that we work together, not to play our own politics, but to make sure that everybody has the same information. I don't want the information from committees that I'm not chair of, because if the chair gets that information, then they can disseminate it to me. But to see that someone who's tried to be diplomatic, you've never seen me play ambush politics here or disrespect people. But to know that I was disrespected and wasn't appreciated, I may not have voted for you, but what I did was I worked with you every step of the way. And in reports said how much I respected you. So hopefully moving forward, while you consider disseminating important information to other folk about criminal justice, maybe you'll consider this brother from New Orleans. With that, I'll move adjournment. All the online comments will be taken. Move adjournment. Can I get a second? Well, we can stay in the meeting. Second by Councilmember Burrell. All in favor? Ayes. The meeting is adjourned.
I want one of them.